You are listening to the 5 a.m. podcast, and today is your day. Welcome to the 5 a.m. podcast. I'm your host, Michael Klassen. In this episode, I'm joined by Bill Gray, and we take a deep dive into the transformative power of mentoring in the workplace. Now, as you probably know, in today's fast-paced and competitive business environment, organizations face significant challenges in retaining top talent, fostering that precious innovation, and developing future leaders. Mentoring programs have emerged as a strategic solution to these challenges, offering more than just a knowledge transfer. They empower individuals, they bridge generational gaps, and they cultivate a culture of continuous growth. Drawing on decades of experience and real world examples from leading companies, this discussion explores how effective mentoring can drive financial success, reduce turnover, and unlock the potential of both mentors and proteges. Whether you are a business leader, an HR professional, or a mentor yourself, this conversation will provide valuable insights into designing, implementing, and sustaining impactful mentoring programs. Now, please share this with 3 of your friends. I know that many are going to enjoy this conversation. Bill Gray, thank you so much for joining me today for the 5 a.m. podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, I'm looking forward to chatting with you. And of course, we'll start off with mentoring and that whole philosophy and approach behind mentoring. Uh, how do you define effective mentoring? And then what are those key principles that guide your mentoring philosophy?
Okay, well, I got started in mentoring way back in 1978. And back then, there were two main concepts of mentoring. One was informal mentoring, just do your own thing, whatever it is. And the other was the historical concept, where you attached yourself to a mentor, sort of like an apprentice, because there was no schooling, there was no training in the workforce. And the only way you could really learn anything is from someone who'd been there and done that. So you learned the ropes aboard a sailing vessel, or the tricks of the trade if you were a merchant, or you got up to speed. And the person who helped you do that was the mentor. And so what the mentor essentially did historically was to equip the protege with what the mentor knows. And that could be just basic knowledge, it could be wisdom, it could be practical know-how, tips, whatever it is. I've been there, I've done that, let me pass it on to you. Well, I discovered as early as 1978, or as long ago as 1978, that equipping the protege is still necessary, but the mentor also needs to empower what the protege wants to learn and do and become, to acknowledge that every protege is a unique human being. They have unique talents, they have dreams, aspirations, passions to do something. They come from diversified backgrounds, different ethnicity, different experiences. And if the only thing you did was equip the protege, in essence, you're producing a clone. Here I am, this is what I know, now you know it too. Okay, so you sort of become a clone of me. Well, that can cause organizations to stagnate if everyone's going around thinking and doing the same thing. And so I discovered by interviewing mentors and proteges that when the relationship worked best, the mentor also empowered the protege to use their talents and dreams and so on. And by doing that, the protege becomes a unique contributor to the organization, becomes indispensable. There's no one like me, okay? I'm a unique person. Here's what I can contribute. And so that's the concept that I've been promoting since 1978. I ended up calling it situational mentoring. And I discovered over time there are 4 mentoring styles. 2 equip the protege with what the mentor knows, and those are the informational styles, where I'm passing on different kinds of information, giving my advice, maybe a prescription, a game plan, so you don't mess up. It's a critical situation and you can't mess it up, so I give you a prescription, something I know will work for you. Or maybe I guide an interaction with you. So either informational or the guiding mentoring styles equip you.
So I
And
want to ask you then, what was your setting when you were doing all of this research on the mentor and protege?
well, there's an old saying, everything I ever learned, I learned in kindergarten. And believe it or not, I learned all this um, because I was a professor at the time, and a teacher asked for my help. She had so many students in grades 4 through 7 coming into her enrichment class, and they were all doing independent projects. And one day, Sheila Herman said, Bill, I have so many students doing so many different projects, I cannot help help all of them. What would you suggest I do? And I was preparing future teachers, and I was always looking for opportunities for my students to work with the kids in the school system to apply with the kids what they were learning from me. And so I said, how about if my students start working with your students? And if you worked with kids, you'll know that if you don't keep their interest, they can walk away. You know, you got to keep them involved and focused. And the mentors who were best able to do that, as I said, equipped them with what they knew. Okay, so they were getting something there, but they weren't being empowered to do what they wanted to do. They were basically doing what the mentor wanted them to do. And those relationships just didn't work out very well. In fact, they eventually fell apart because the mentor was basically no different than another parent or another teacher. And where the relationships did succeed, the mentors not only equipped the protege, but they empowered the protege. You know, what are you really interested in? What do you want to do with your life? What are you passionate about? Because the projects that the mentors were doing with these young people in grades 4 through 12 had to do with exploring careers they thought they were interested in pursuing and learning more about. And so that's where the empowering came in. And over 16 semesters as a professor, I trained over 300 of my undergraduates to be mentors to over 1,000 youth in grades 4 through 12.
So then I've got to ask you that because that sounds like a Herculean task, but one of the things that is ubiquitous in life is titles. And so it wasn't until I was in college that I actually heard about mentorship and mentors. But you're talking about proteges. Can you describe where the term protege comes from and why it's so appropriate to this mentor relationship?
Yeah. Okay, well, here again, when I got started back in 1978, I honestly didn't know much about it either. I was a learner. And so I did my research as a professor, and the word protege comes from a French word, which is protege, and it means the protected one. And what that meant is the mentor would encourage the protege to take risk and try out things. And when they didn't work, to protect the protege. Because sometimes you do fail when you try something that you don't know how to do. But if you don't take a risk, you can't ever learn anything new and different. And that's where the empowering comes in again. It's not just doing a brain dump, but it's helping the protege consider new possibilities.
Hmm. So then I wanted to ask you then about that empowering, but also the equipping part. And is there kind of maybe a balance or some maybe not an algebraic equation, but a way to balance that equipping and empowering the protege through this relationship?
Well, it's more than a balancing. Okay, first of all, the mentoring styles that I identified are not stages. You don't go from stage 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. A style can happen anytime you and I are communicating. For example, you just asked me a guiding style behavior, a question to bring out information from me. Okay. Um, if you said, I'd like your advice, that's a different style. And then I give you what I think you should do. Okay. Um, th- let, let me give you 3 examples. Okay. I could prescribe a game plan so you don't fail. because you can't fail. This is a critical situation. I don't want you to fail. So would you like to know a game plan so you'll be successful? You'll probably say, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. On the other hand, if it's not really critical, I might say, I can give you advice and tell you what I think you should do, or I can make some suggestions for you to think about. What do you prefer? Now, if you're a little more independent and self-motivated, you'll probably say, I'd rather have you give me suggestions for me to think about. Okay. If you're not quite sure, you might say, "Oh, no, tell me what I should do. Give me your advice." So that's why I say it's not just necessarily a balancing act, it's providing the appropriate behavior when it's needed. And the way to conceptualize this, I have it all on a little pocket card, if you could.
Okay.
And so to keep track of all these mentoring behaviors, you have to have a framework, and the framework are the 4 styles because there are behaviors associated with each style. And so when I'm training mentor protege partners how to work together, they both hear the same instruction, and then they apply it as they work together doing an activity. So they learn to style shift, to use the different styles appropriately. So it's not just a balancing act.
So then I wanted to ask you about why it's important, and maybe I'm jumping the gun on this one, but it sounds like a good question
Oh,
in
go
this
ahead.
moment is why is it important for mentors then to match their expertise with the specific needs of their protege?
Okay, let me give you how I came up with that realization. Um, I was doing a partner training with Eastman Kodak, and I had an activity for the partners to work on together called goal setting, to agree on a goal that they were going to carry out over a period of time. And I had allowed, I think, 30, 45 minutes to do goal setting. Some of the partners sat there for 30 to 45 minutes and could not come up with a goal to work on. They talked about situations, issues, dreams, hopes, anything you could think of, but not a goal. Not something where we can start it, work through it, and finish it and achieve it. And so I put on my thinking hat and I said, how can I help them pinpoint very quickly and very precisely what to work on? And I decided on a protege needs inventory. And so I worked with the coordinator of the program there at Eastman Kodak, and we came up with categories of needs, like adjusting to the organization. And then another category would be looking for career development opportunities. So we'd have categories, and under each category, we'd have very specific behaviors that you either needed help with or you didn't. And so if you're the protege, you'd go down the list and say, yes, 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 yes. If you're the mentor, you go down the list and say, I have this corresponding expertise. And then when you got together, you very quickly could compare. Let's say you're my mentor
Yes.
and I'm your protege. You've got your list, I've got mine. It's the same list, but you've answered from the point of view of the mentor. You have this expertise. I'm answering from what I need help with. So we lay our 2 out together, and very quickly we can identify, I have an important need here, but you don't have any expertise. Well, let's move on. Let's find another one because it's a long list, might be 20, 30 items. We can't do them all. So let's find something we can get started on that's important to me that you can help me with. Now, the other thing that's important about this is there are other people in the class who've answered the same expertise inventory. Okay. So if you can't help me with something, maybe some other mentor can. Okay. Because we're all in the class together. That's why the dynamic of a classroom training is really important. So say, for example, I'm a female, and I know this from lots of experience. A lot of the females would check, I need help with work-life balance. I want my career to progress. I'm married. I have a husband. I have a couple of kids. How do I balance all this? And as a male, if I'm her mentor, I'd say, well, I'm afraid I can't help you, but I know a female who can. She's figured this out. Would you like for me to connect you with her? And of course, they'd always say yes. So I remain the primary mentor to a female protege, but she goes off and gets help from a female mentor for that one issue. Okay.
So I wanted to ask you then, you mentioned Eastman Kodak, large company
Yeah.
in its time. Were there other big, maybe they're blue chip or other companies like that that you know of that have also employed the mentoring program?
Well, over my 45 years career developing mentoring programs, I've developed over 150 different programs, and they've all been different. For example, even in Eastman Kodak, we had 3 or 4 different programs. We had a program for brand new hires, all of whom had PhDs, and what they had to do was to adjust to working in a research lab on a team 9 to 5. And the reason that was difficult is because they had just finished their PhD working in the wee hours of the morning on their own, doing their own research. Okay. And so they had to get a whole different mindset. Um, Another example, Eastman Kodak decided that the future was the information age,
Mhm.
was digital. Everything was going digital. And of course, they were historically fixated on photography, on film.
Yeah.
So they started hiring the best and brightest PhDs to go into their research lab and do work on the digital side. And so, in order to produce a hybrid product like a laser printer, they had to have people with a chemical background working with people with an electrical background. Well, if you've been on any college campus into the engineering faculty, it doesn't take long to find out what the pecking order is. On many campuses, electrical engineering is at the top because it's so difficult, and down the bottom might be civil engineering or
Yeah.
mechanical. Okay, but there's a pecking order. And they each think they're God's gift to the company. Okay. So they come in with these silo ways of thinking. I'm better than you, and so on. And so we had to break all that down. And the way we did it is we did reciprocal mentoring. Let's say you're electrical engineering and I'm chemical. So we would work together. And the first thing we do is learn about each other's type of engineering. Uh, what are the pseudonyms, for example, that you use to talk? What are the projects you work on? How do you do your research? How do you solve problems? So we get to know each other and appreciate what each other can contribute. And then we start working on actual projects together.
Interesting. So then does that lead into the development of that complete competency in mentoring? Or are there some components to that as well?
Well, many of the mentoring programs that we developed had as one of the goals to help the protege become competent. For example, a fellow named Lawrence Peter wrote a book years ago called The Peter Principle. And he started out by examining what was happening in education, how a good classroom teacher became the assistant principal, then the assistant superintendent, then the superintendent. And as they moved up, they were incompetent because they weren't prepared to move that way. Because each of these levels has functions that they're responsible for. But if you haven't developed the competencies, you're not going to be successful or competent at the different levels. And then he went into the corporate world and found the same thing and wrote his book, The Peter Principle. So what we've done is we've taken the point of view that when we're doing the collaborative planning of a new mentoring program, one of the first questions is it meant to help the protege become competent? And if so, in what way? So say, for example, they're moving into a managerial position. Okay, do they need to learn managerial competencies? Yes. Okay, so what are these? Well, let's say they've been good managers and you want to promote them into leadership. Well, there's a lot of research that leaders are visionary. They don't manage the day-to-day operations. I've been a manager managing day-to-day operations. I'm not visionary yet. I haven't had to stand up and give speeches to persuade people to get with the program. Okay, so there's a whole skill set I haven't learned. Or let's say that, and this happened at Jet Propulsion Lab as an example.
Okay.
The first program we set up there was for freshmen, or called fresh outs. They were fresh out of university, and they knew nothing about Jet Propulsion Lab or living in Pasadena, the cost of living, Caltech, all the things the Jet Propulsion Lab was involved in. And they needed mentoring. It worked so well, we then did it for all the new hires. And that worked so well, the mentors came and said, we need mentoring to move up on the technical side of Jet Propulsion Lab. And the mentoring they needed to move from a techie to a manager was what's called emotional intelligence or people skills. And if you've known a lot of techies, one thing they tend to not have a lot of are the people skills because they haven't needed them.
Right.
You know, they haven't needed them yet. But if you're going to be managing people and not doing the technical work anymore, you need the people skills. So that became a category. People, and under that, what are all the people skills like listening and asking good questions, like you're doing.
Thank you. So speaking of questions, I have another one for you. So you've been mentioning the PhD and the various levels of education. Can you describe for, let's say there are some proteges listening and some university students or maybe people that have gone through their masters and they're kind of wondering, oh man, should I keep going, should I spend some more money in university, should I get to work? And can you make that case to them of why advancing to that higher level of education beyond maybe an undergrad degree or master's level, what's the case to go higher in their education and to develop themselves more in that way?
Well, I've thought about that question a lot, and I've tried to make it personal. If I were a young person, 18, just leaving high school, what would I want to do with my life? And unless I actually needed a more advanced degree, I don't know that I would go into typical higher education. I might have gone into the trades.
Okay.
And there's a lot of reasons for that. If you look at the research, um, the typical graduate from a university or college is in debt.
Yeah.
Okay, they are in debt. If you're in the trades, you do co-ops, and when you're out on a co-op experience, you're getting paid for the work you're doing by an employer. So you're not only getting to know what's going on out there in the real world, you're also, in essence, interviewing potential employers as they are interviewing you. I mean, not in a formal way, but, do I want to work in this company? Do they want me here? Can I work with this team on these projects? And to give you an example, my cousin went to Virginia Tech in mechanical engineering. He was in the co-op program and graduated owing no money. So it's just hard to say. Now the other thing that I'll say is that unfortunately, some of the master's and doctoral programs have not kept up with the times. And let me give you an example. One of our clients was Scotiabank. And they gave me a call and they said, here's our situation, Bill. We're hiring the best and brightest MBAs. They have an MBA to come into the bank, and we're training them to learn 103 competencies to become commercial loans officers. And they haven't learned any of these in their MBA training. None. Not only that, they don't even know what modern banking is. We now go after customers. We don't sit here and say we're open from, 9 to 3, 4 days a week. If you want us, come see us. That's the old banking. The new banking is we go out and get customers and we cross-sell. We have this, we have this, we have this. We'd like to provide all of this for you as our customer. Okay, completely different mindset. They hadn't been introduced to any of that. The realities of banking. So we set up a mentoring program at Scotiabank that did all of those things, help them learn 103 competencies, and I'll explain that in a second, help them get grounded in the realities of modern banking, and also reduce costly turnover, because here's what was happening. The best and brightest get hired, they're not getting promoted, they leave. The company spent all this money recruiting them, trying to train them, getting them up to speed, and they leave. So they now have to do it again, and that's costing them money. So in one program, we solved three main problems. Now, how did we develop the competencies? First of all, we looked at the training courses that were already there. We decided not to change any of those because in the courses, they were learning about the competency and why it was important, but they weren't learning how to perform the competency because you can't do it in the classroom. So after they took their course, each course, and there were a number of after they took a course and learned about the competency and why it was important, we matched them with a branch manager, the Scotia Bank manager. And the manager's role was to make sure they were connected with different people in that branch to perform the competency, to learn how to do it. So the manager wasn't just the mentor. He was like an orchestrator, or she, like an orchestrator. And here again, the reason it worked was the protege needs inventory. Okay, because we could look down the list and see what they could already do, what they already knew, and where they needed to work on it. But we didn't want to tie the branch manager or anyone in the branch teaching the course. They don't have time for that. They're dealing with customers.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So that sounds like that there's an importance there of action planning, but also goal attainment
Yes.
for these people coming in. So then with this idea of action planning and goal attainment, what are some of those challenges that you maybe helped your clients or the individuals overcome or identify as to here's a roadblock for your action plan or your goal attainment?
Okay, let me talk a minute about action planning because I really haven't done that. So you go from a need and a corresponding expertise. Let's make sure that you can help me.
Yeah.
Okay. And then it's an important need. So let's make that a goal to attain. It's not just a need anymore. It's a goal to attain. Okay. How are we going to do that? Let's create a mentoring action plan. And in the plan, we'll have all of the things we're going to do. Some things I might do on my own. Some things you might do for me. Some things we might do together. Some things you might refer me to other people to help me with. Like I mentioned earlier about work-life balance. Okay. It's all in the plan. Okay. And we have we put in realistic dates, when are we going to do each thing? And we work through the plan. Now, why is this important? One of our clients for about 12 years was CSX Transportation. They were the biggest transportation company in America when they hired us. Why did they hire us? They had all kinds of problems, mostly around silo thinking. They had management versus labor, always going on strike. They couldn't get along. They had a really crackerjack sales force that would go out and sell, 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 sell. They'd come back with a contract and the finance department would say, whoa, 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 we can't make any money on that. We're not going to approve it. Okay. So every department thought they were God's gift to the company. Okay. They weren't working together. And they weren't working together for the good of the client, let alone for the company. you know. And so again, we set up reciprocal mentoring. So someone, say in labor and management, would mentor together to understand where each other is coming from, why it's important, why is labor important, why is management important, what do they do, or finance and sales, for example. And so what we did doing that is we broke down the silo thinking. Everybody's in a silo here. Yeah. And so we broke down the silo thinking. And we did it through by helping them carry out the mentoring action plan. Now, at about the 10-year mark, I was asked to present at a mentoring conference. So I phoned up one of the coordinators that I had developed a really good relationship with. We played tennis and all kinds of things together. And so Doug Klippel said, yeah, he would join me and we'd co-present. And I said, Doug, what do you want to present? And he said, well, as you know, I have a PhD in statistics and I'm responsible for documenting results. So let me aggregate all the results over 10 years. He'd never done that before. He phoned me back and he said, Bill, I've run the data backwards and forwards. I looked at 1 year versus another year. I've aggregated it. And by then, probably 600 people had been through the program. And they went through and what they call cohorts of 25 payers. So lots of cohorts have been through, and he had the same results for every cohort. And I said, Doug, what did you find? And he said, well, it doesn't matter what year, if I aggregate, I get the same results. The mentors and the proteges who report the most benefits don't even live in the same city. They're in long distance relationships. Why do they have the best results? And I said, Doug, I don't have a clue. I said, why did you phone a few of them up and ask them how they did it? Well, he phoned them up and he said they worked the plan. So the plan was like their roadmap. Right. Like you and I have a plan. I didn't just show up here. This isn't random. We had planned to get together. We had planned what we were going to talk about a bit. Okay. So whenever they got together, what was by phone or in person, however they did it, they knew why they were meeting. It was in the action plan. So they ticked that off. We've done that. We've done that. So they worked the plan and achieved the goal. The people who could see each other all the time very often just did lunch and talked. It didn't achieve as much. Let me give you another example. How did I discover that? I discovered this originally working with kids. Some of the teachers used to bug me. They would say, Bill, I don't think it's important that the kids complete these projects. Remember, they were carrying out a project.
That's right.
Where they could identify careers they thought they might be interested in. Okay, and they had an action plan for doing that, what they were going to do each time they met. This was a 10-week project. So they had to have 10 weeks of something planned, like going out on site, doing job shadowing, interviewing professionals, practicing before they went. Whatever it was in the plan. Okay. And so one year I said to myself, I'm going to do a research study and find out how important these plans are. Because I insisted that they complete the plans. In fact, the proteges had to sign and the parents had to sign, I'll make sure my child completes the plan. Because if they didn't, here's what happened to me, Michael. My mentors would come back. Remember, these are university students. They're doing this as an assignment they volunteered to do, an optional assignment, but they get credit for doing it. They come back and say, my proteges aren't showing up. I can't complete the assignment. Can you give me another assignment to do? So I'm trying to help this teacher and these kids, and now I've got a problem. And I said, this can't go on. Okay, so we figured out how to make it work. Okay, so what I found, there were 31 grade 5 and 6 students in this research project, 31. Of the 31, 29 said the most important thing that we did over 10 weeks was we completed the plan. Because I gave them a list of things. My mentor listened to me. Right. My mentor incorporated my ideas. We went on field trips I was interested in. I met people and interviewed them. You know, all the things they did was part of what was the most important thing that made this project successful from your point of view. 29 out of 31 said we completed the plan. And you know what? I sent a survey home to the parents. You know what the parents said? The most important benefit that their child got from having a mentor? They finally completed something.
Thanks for watching the show. Just a reminder that you can get all of our resources, other episodes, and read our blog posts at 5ampodcast.com. 5am Podcast is brought to you in part by mkci.ca, a certified member of the Autodesk Developer Network. MKCI helps companies maximize their AutoCAD, Inventor, Navisworks, and other design software investments. Their innovative products like the CommandSys script editor and the Clash Management Suite will streamline your workflow and boost your productivity. Visit mkci.ca today to discover how they can enhance your competitive CAD advantage. That's mkci.ca. Thank you for your support of 5am Podcast. Bill, that was a great way to end off that last segment, just talking about the action plan, working the plan, and making the plan and working the plan, as has been said. I wanted to ask you about the dollars and cents of mentoring. Have you quantified the financial value for businesses that have a mentoring program and those that don't? Or maybe it's not dollars and cents, maybe there's other benefits that companies that mentor acquire than those that don't.
I haven't done any systematic research. I'd say it'd be more on the anecdotal side. But let me give you an example. One of our clients was Varian Associates, located in Palo Alto, California, and it was the radiation division. They had 23 divisions worldwide at that time, and the radiation division was the one that contacted me. And during the collaborative planning, we decided that we would empower the proteges to nominate their mentors, because one of the goals of this mentoring program was to retain high potential new hires that they spent money, lots of money, to bring to the radiation division. They brought them from MIT, Stanford, Caltech, everywhere, the best and the brightest. And they were leaving after a year. And so we had to figure out some way to get them to stay. And one thing we decided was a mentoring program to help them get up to speed, become part of the company, feel welcome, not only learn to do what a newer hire is expected to do, but start looking forward. And we also empowered them to nominate their own mentors. Now, ordinarily, I would not have recommended this particular matching, but one of these high potential proteges nominated a senior vice president to be the mentor.
That's lofty.
Brand new hire, senior vice president. Okay. That's quite a gap. The reason for that is this high potential protege had been on a couple of project teams and had decided he wanted to become a project manager. The problem was there were no training courses on how to be a project manager. The way you learned was by osmosis. You were on one team, another team, and then next team, Michael, you're the head of the project team. And he thought there had to be a better way. So he nominated the senior vice president who had been one of their best project managers. So what the project manager did as a mentor was a brain dump. He equipped this protege with everything he knew about project management and did some empowering along the way. But towards the end of the relationship, and in a formalized mentoring program, there's always a beginning and an end to the formal relationship. Now, you can continue meeting afterwards, but your formal commitment ends. And I think this was a 6-month commitment. So towards the end of the 6 months, the mentor and protege began to talk about the need for training courses to become a project manager. And because this mentor was a senior vice president, he could make things happen. So he phoned the training department and said, I want you to work with my protege. not this high potential new hire. I want you to work with my protege and I'll help you. And what your task is to create courses on how to become a project manager. We don't have any in the radiation division. Within 3 years, the radiation division went from number 23. It was a black hole. It lost money every year into the top 3 or 4. It became a profit center because of that one relationship.
That makes so much sense when you can look at it in this way of retaining staff, developing talent within. It costs a lot of money to
A
hire.
lot of money. Let me give you another example. I don't think they exist anymore, but at one time, AT&T had a consumer products lab in Indianapolis, Indiana. And the reason for their existence was to innovate new consumer products. Okay, so I got a phone call. I'd worked with other AT&T groups, and I got a phone call, and they said, here's our problem. again, we've hired all these high potentials to come here, help us innovate new products. We can't promote them. There's no place to promote them. And they don't think they have a future here. And they're leaving. We have a turnover problem. What can we do? So I went in, we did collaborative program planning. And I should talk about that a bit because that's absolutely essential. On the collaborative planning team, I want all the key stakeholders. I want someone higher up who's going to be the champion, the sponsor, the funder. Okay. I want potential mentors. I want potential proteges because these are the users of whatever we come up with. I also like one or two naysayers who are going to tell us why we shouldn't be doing this. And then I'll turn it back to them and say, well, okay, you got a good point there. What could we do to change that? And so from being a naysayer, they become a contributor. and as you know, naysayers tend to be very vocal and outspoken and go around telling everyone why this isn't going to work. And so now we turn them into advocates. Okay. So we go through, and depending on the complexity, it's 1, 2, or 3 days. And in this program, I think it was 2 days. Because it was a complex program. What are we going to do with these high potentials who want to get promoted or they're leaving? Okay. We can't promote them. So as we're going back and forth, some of the mentors speak up and say, as you know, I'm working on a project and I have a team of people and we innovate this product in our project. This is what we do. I think some of them could join our team and really be contributors because they have a different perspective. They've just, come right out of university and, they've learned some things that maybe we haven't learned yet. So they can come in with a different perspective and add something that we can't add. So that's what we ended up doing. We put these high potential, we didn't force them. We didn't force a team to take them. A team said, we want you and you and you. So they might have 2 or 3 on that they added to the team. Okay, let's go back to your question. What difference did it make? Well, it reduced the turnover problem. They weren't leaving because intellectual capital was in this project. Remember, this is AT&T. Okay. This is not a podunk company. It's not a startup. This is AT&T. So they can't go anywhere and have access to this intellectual capital if they get off this project. So they stay. Okay, now, because they stay, what happened? We reduce the cost of turnover. That's gone. We don't have to replace anyone. But you know what? We also get new products out the door quicker, better made, beat the competition, make more money.
Yes.
So that's the benefit of the collaborative planning. We put our heads together and we can come up with multiple outcomes that can be achieved in one program.
Wow. So then that leads me to this next question, Bill, that I've got to ask. There must be some common challenges in these mentoring relationships that I'm sure you've identified and maybe created some steps to prevent these common challenges from occurring.
Well, I would say the biggest challenge always is time. The number one question that every mentor wants an answer to before he or she volunteers to be part of the program is, how much time is this going to take? And so during the collaborative planning, we have to be realistic. Remember, this is a formalized program. Everything is structured and planned, formalized. And part of what's planned is the duration of the formal relationship. It has a beginning, it has an end. Is it going to be 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 18 months, 36 months? How long will it take for the protege to learn what the protege needs to learn in this program? And I'll come back to that in a few minutes. But time is a factor. Now, to get around the time, let me give you some examples. One of our clients was AIL Systems on Long Island. And it's a defense contractor. And they had identified that all 15 of their independent researchers were going to retire within about 2 years. and 14 were men and 1 was a female. So I'm going to speak as though they're all male, just to make it easy. All 15 are going to retire within 2 years. So we have some of these independent researchers on the planning team, and we ask them, how can you pass on to the next generation who's going to replace you? How can you pass on how you write the contracts to bring the money in, how you manage the project so they're successful? It's, all the things you do. Okay. How can we make that happen? And what they said is, you've got to stitch them to our hip for at least 6 months. Whatever we do, wherever we go, whatever we're working on, they've got to be there. They've got to see it, be part of it, talk with us, learn from us as we're doing it. Okay?
Yep.
Okay, now here's where the problem comes in.
Okay.
Everybody's on billable hours.
Yeah.
So if these proteges are not working on their stuff and getting paid, the company is not making any money. Okay. But you know what? The mentor said, if you don't do this in 2 years, you won't have a company. Because we're gone. We're out of here. We write the proposals that get the grant money. We oversee the projects so they're successful. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay. If you want to continue on, we've got to literally groom our replacements. And the only way to do it is stitch them to our hip for 6 months. They had to make that decision. That's where time comes in again.
In that line of reasoning, because I was thinking of this too. Did you ever get the comment from maybe some CEOs or some stakeholders that said, well, how much is this going to cost me? How much money am I going to lose during this mentorship time?
Well, there's an old saying, you have to spend money to make money. And okay, this is why during collaborative program planning with all the key stakeholders, one of the big questions is, what is the return on investment that we have to demonstrate that justifies this program?
Gotcha.
Another major question is, what is the business case for this program? Now, these two are usually related, but what is the business case? Because once we identify this, everything defers to those two items. If anyone says we can't afford it, well, here's the ROI, or we don't have the time, here's the business case.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So those are absolutely fundamental, and we have to pin those down. They have to be irrefutable. And I can't do it as an outsider. I can't come in and tell you what your ROI should be or your business case is, anything.
Fascinating. So then I've got another question that's related to this, and I'm thinking, my 14-year-old little dog is sleeping right beside me as he normally does when I'm sitting here. But I think back to what he was like when he was a youngster, a little
Yeah.
pupperoo, as we would call him. But I'm thinking of these just about to retire defense independent contractors and the new people coming in, and I'm thinking of
Well, no. These weren't new people with the
they're not.
defense contractors.
Okay, good.
Okay, let me talk about that in a few minutes. I'll tell you why you can't do that.
Okay, good. So that was then my question is you have these, let's say 14-year-old dogs that are kind of set in their ways. They see the doorway to retirement, and then it's who you're bringing on. And so I was envisioning what little Bailey dog was like when he was
No.
6 months or 12 months. But
No. Okay, this is why you need an expert who understands the big picture and has done a lot of this.
okay.
Shell Oil did what I'm going to describe. I've worked with different parts of Shell Oil, Shell's everywhere. I didn't work with this group. If I had, they would not have made this mistake.
Okay.
In their stupidity, they picked their independent contractors. Okay. They matched them with new people. And it didn't take the independent contractors long to realize these people don't have enough experience to get anything I can pass on. Anything. And so it just fell apart. Okay, so one of the questions Usually when you design a program, you start with the protege because most programs are designed to develop the protege in a certain way. But like with AIL systems, that started with the mentor. You know, how can the mentors pass on and who do they pass it on to?
Yes.
Okay. So that started in a different direction. So, and believe me, when I start facilitating program planning, I don't have a clue what we're going to come up with. But my role is to share with them what I know works and doesn't work. And so that's what I do.
So then what is your suggestion then as they find the appropriate proteges, but they still have to maybe handle the creativity and individuality of the protege?
Well, okay, there's been a number of research studies trying to find out, is there an ideal mentor? Is there an ideal protege? The answer is no. Okay, the answer is no. And okay, let me give you another example at Varian and Associates.
Okay.
Susie Carl was their coordinator. Oh, I always have the program coordinator on the planning team.
Okay.
Okay, because we're not going to dump the program on the coordinator.
Right.
And I make it very clear to everybody, this is not the coordinator's program. This is your organizational program, the radiation division or whatever it is. Okay. You are the owner of the program. Susie is the coordinator overseeing everything. Okay. So here was the situation at Varian. I did 3, 4 different programs with them. So another program. The issue was, again, they have an older workforce that made the company. Okay, this wasn't the radiation division. This was another division that made the company. These were the veterans. They're hiring the best and brightest younger people. Okay, they've learned all the latest technology. So they come in thinking, I'm God's gift to this company.
As you do.
And the veterans are thinking, you don't know.
Right.
Well, they don't. Well, some of them did say that actually. So, so what we have here is an intergenerational conflict.
Okay.
Okay, how do you deal with that? So during program planning, we decided on reciprocal mentoring. Okay, the veterans are going to pass on the tricks of the trade, equipping and empowering, and the newcomers are going to teach the veterans, equipping and empowering them to learn the latest technologies, you know, like social media and all kinds of things that they know nothing about.
Right.
And so they're each indispensable to each other. They're both mentors, the younger ones and the older ones. But Susie Carl speaks up and she says, I hate to tell you guys this, and a lot of the people on the committee were men at that time because the women hadn't broken through the glass ceiling. She said, I hate to tell you guys this. I've been here a long, long time. I know all of these mentors. And some of them are so gruff, they'll eat these young people alive. So she said, here's what I propose. I propose that I meet with every mentor before he or she meets with a protege. I meet with every protege before he or she meets with the mentor, and I prep them.
Okay.
So let's say old so-and-so Michael here is very gruff and task-oriented, and the protege is going to go spend some time with him. Here's what you need to know about Michael. He doesn't want you there, first of all. Okay. But he's volunteered to be part of this program for the good of the company. So to work with Michael the way he wants, you've got to go in and be totally prepared so you don't waste any of his time. You've got to have your questions pinned down. You've got to have a way of getting his answers and understanding them, going out and applying it. So when you come back next time, he says, how did that work? You're going to say, it worked really well. Okay. Now, on the other hand, here's Bill. Bill's very social. And so when you go see him, he's going to want you to sit down and have a coffee or a tea and chit chat for a while and get to know you. Okay. And you're kind of task oriented. You don't like chit chatting, but you're going to have to do that with Bill. So she prepped everybody. And so she'd go to Michael, the veteran who's grumpy and so on. You say, Michael, we got this really energetic, just super protege is going to come to see you. I prepped him. He's going to come in prepared. He's got his questions. He's not going to take up a lot of your time. He knows you're busy. He respects you for that. So can you give him 15, 20 minutes, whatever he needs? Let him ask his questions, leave, and then you can make sure he applies what you've asked him to do. So the next time you meet with him, now as Susie called, I prepped everyone on all this. Okay. So if she hadn't done that, believe me, it would not have worked. But all of this comes out of the collaborative planning. I would not have envisioned that in my wildest imagination, except a coordinator was on the committee, on the planning committee, and she knew all of the veterans who were going to be the mentors.
You just have those personality quirks. Are there some techniques that you've seen over the years that have actually worked to maybe build some bridges instead of burning them?
Yeah, they're everywhere. My wife and I were hired to work with Shell Oil on the island of Borneo in a little city called Miri, M-I-R-I. We were going to match the partners appropriately. And the way we were going to do that, they were going to come to a 2-day training. And Marilyn and I worked it, so she did some things and I did some things. One of the things I did, which was a breakthrough, going back to what you said, I had developed an instrument called the General Style of Functioning. It identifies 4 styles. Are you results-oriented or diagonally opposite? Are you feeling-oriented? Are you analytic or diagonally opposite? Are you creative? Okay. And almost without exception, the mentors were results oriented. We taught them what the styles were like, and then they had to share in their group from their style how they functioned. And then the next part of the activity was, okay, now you have to role play how you would work with the other styles. Remember, all 4 styles are in the group. The results-oriented people had to learn, I can't just boss these people around. I have to involve them in decision-making. At the end of the series of activities, they all got it. They realized that for success, if I'm results-oriented and I want success, and I do, I have to work differently with all the styles.
That's fascinating. Now, we're getting close to the end of our time. How can people get in touch with you?
They can go to my website, www.mentoring-solutions.com, or if you're interested in some of my other writing, my more Christian writing, you can go to www.god-nods.com.
Well, we are plumb out of time, Bill. I can't believe it's gone so fast. What a great conversation. A sincere thanks for you joining me today for the 5 a.m. podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening in and enjoying this conversation between Bill and myself. What a powerful conversation. We've explored mentoring, and it's far more than a simple exchange of knowledge. It's a dynamic partnership that equips and empowers individuals to thrive in their roles and contribute uniquely to their organization. From reducing costly turnover to accelerating innovation to breaking down silos, the benefits of a well-structured mentoring program are profound and measurable. While challenges exist, thoughtful planning and collaboration can create mentoring relationships that transform culture and performance. Success lies in working the plan. Until next time, please seize your day, enjoy those sunrises and sunsets, and all those beautiful adventures in between. I'm Michael Klassen. Thanks for watching the show. Just a reminder that you can get all of our resources, other episodes, and read our blog posts at 5ampodcast.com. 5 a.m. Podcast is brought to you in part by mkci.ca, a certified member of the Autodesk Developer Network. MKCI helps companies maximize their AutoCAD, Inventor, Navisworks, and other design software investments. Their innovative products like the CommandSys script editor and the Clash Management Suite will streamline your workflow and boost your productivity. Visit mkci.ca today to discover how they can enhance your competitive CAD advantage. That's mkci.ca. Thank you for your support of 5am Podcast.